Good morning from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. This is USSA's Sports Talk Hangout. Every Wednesday morning at this time. It's a production of the Communications Department of the United States Sports Academy. Myself and the panel of our faculty and staff discuss pertinent issues. I'm Dr. Arthur Ogden, Chair of Sports Management, and the panel today consists of Dr. Fred Quimardi, who is our Director of Doctoral Studies, and Dr. Tim Foley, Dean of Student Services. Last week, we talked about the CFP, College Football Playoff Committee's first rankings, and we'll touch on that lightly today. And they rank all 25, and it's only going to be the only poll that matters when it comes to the final four teams in NCAA FBS who will play in the playoff. Now we're beginning to see that there are teams down below the top four which might very well make it in. And the argument could be made, should the playoff system be expanded to, say, 8 teams? And it may be premature with this, but when you take a look at it, the top four this week, 2 weeks in a row, the top four this week, number 1, Mississippi State, number 2, Florida State. That's obvious because they're both undefeated. Auburn is number 3 again this week with 1 loss. The only loss is to the number 1 ranked team presently. And then Oregon replaced Ole Miss at number 4 because Auburn defeated Ole Miss last Saturday night. But when you take a look at some of the other 1-loss teams, Alabama, TCU, Kansas State, Michigan State, and the much ballyhooed Oregon, you still have to deal with teams like Notre Dame, Arizona State, Baylor, Nebraska, and even Ohio State, who had a horrible loss at home season opener, Virginia Tech. We know now that the committee is going to take head-to-head competition into account, strength of schedule, and so forth. But there's one significant thing we need to remember, comparing this playoff to the basketball tournament, because that might come up in the discussion. The basketball tournament, the NCAA basketball tournament, is owned. The rights are owned by the NCAA. The FBS, College Football Playoff, is not owned by the NCAA. And so that makes a difference. In all other sports in the NCAA, Division I, Division IAA, or the FCS, Division II and Division III, there is a playoff. Some of them have 16 teams. So today we look at the real feasibility of a more expanded FBS playoff. So, Fred, what's your initial response?
Well, when you mention the key point that the NCAA tournament is controlled exclusively by the NCAA.
Basketball.
Yeah, basketball. The simple fact of the matter is that you have to take into account the history of College Football Association, which was at one time controlled by the NCAA. And then they lost that control. Well, they advocated it, basically. They didn't want to take the responsibility for it. That's when the bowl structure came into power. Exactly. And that's part of the process today, where the bowls themselves still see a huge pot of gold out there, and they're just not so quick to relinquish that power. I'm sure the NCAA would love to say, hey, let's bring this back into the house. Let's control both basketball and football as they control all the other championships and all the other sports in that. It would be great, but it's just not possible right now. But I think that the overall structure in terms of getting it started this year, remember when they were proposing all of this last year and in the years past and that, people were saying, well, why don't we mirror the other divisions in that and maybe start with 8? Then it was, no, we don't want to do 8. So they all settled on 4. At some point with the refinement and the adjustments and everything like that, you're probably going to get 8. You're probably going to get maybe 10 or, to the 16-team format. It's just going to be a slow, gradual process, I think.
Yeah, I know that Tim and I have talked about this offline. Your observations, Tim?
Well, the bottom line, I think what we all want to see is the championship decided on the field. If you stay at 4, I think someone is going to get left out. There's going to be a lot of controversy. We've already talked about it.
Whether you stay at 4, go to 16, 32, 64, somebody's getting left out.
Well,
we see that in basketball, you're going to see it in football.
Right, but the argument right now, if you just take a look at the top 10 teams,
Yeah.
8 of them could really, really do well in an 18 playoff. Now, obviously, Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama, they're going to take care of themselves. TCU and Kansas State are going to take care of themselves. Michigan State has to play Ohio State yet. So, and I selected the number 8 right now because I think it'll be an easier step forward. And you alluded to this earlier, but what significant hold do the bowls have on the whole process, Tim?
Well, I think the money coming in to not only the individuals, but these cities, the exposure that how many teams are going to be in bowls?
Maybe 64 because there are 32 bowls.
Yeah.
I really didn't, you really don't realize I flew into Las Vegas the day before of whatever bowl last year where USC and Fresno State. And
Las Vegas Bowl.
There were fans everywhere. So
hold on. You're going into an area there where we know is quite not true. You're talking about the economic benefits for the bowls being in these particular cities. It's not all that great.
I understand that. That's a good point. But
I'm off topic.
The hold that these bowls have is really a function of the incestuous relationship between the bowls and athletic administrators, athletic directors. Retire and they get a job as one of the bowl executives. The bowl executives go off and they court these athletic administrators and so forth. And for years and years, case in point, the Orange Bowl for years and years was one of the premier bowls. What they did was they brought the teams in, and the teams would not only be treated luxuriously, but after the game, they'd all go on a cruise. So, naturally they say, yeah, let's do that. But what do we think can be done to get a real playoff with more than 4 teams? Let's say 8. What can we do to get that going? Fred?
Well, the thing that we have to do is we're going to have to let it play out this year. And the movers and the shakers behind this right now, which we all know is ESPN, the fact of the matter is that those guys, their commentary is going to take on great significance in regards to improvements, expanding it, and getting those folks on board. It's just like the ball games, man. They got to have that little bit of influence, and that influence right now is through the medium outlet in that. So once that starts to transpire and take place, that's when you get people to really listen to what's being said in that and make determinations based on that. The other thing is that look at it. If one of the bowls right now, it's not just one particular bowl that's in bed, to make that the championship site. But if somebody is able to maneuver politically somehow and monetarily to position themselves ahead of the rest of the bowls, oh my goodness.
Well, I think you hit it right when you talk about ESPN. ESPN has the money. They're offering multi-billion-dollar deals. I'm sorry, if ESPN keeps that up, though, if they keep Danny Cannell in this, I'm
I'm happy about the movement into the Power 5 conferences. The national championship in football is going to come from one of those conferences. Divide them up.
How do you mean?
Well, to me, there's something wrong that you have how many at the top level? 120 schools?
126.
But only what? How many are in the
65?
Top? 65. And one of those schools, maybe you make a separate system for those schools. Let them play each other.
Yeah, well, let's see. That would put, Arkansas against Iowa State. That would be a real draw.
Well, you're compete. You have all these schools at this level that are not going to compete. They may get into some little bowl, but they're not going to compete for a championship.
Yeah, but see, then we're looking over the overall philosophy of, what college football is all about. Okay, great. We understand what it's all about. We understand what they pontificate, what they're preaching that it's supposed to be all about. But it basically is what you're saying is it's about the power schools. It's about winning and losing, and let's leave it at that. I'm fine. Be honest. But that's not where we're going with it. So let's not bite off that apple.
I think ultimately money is going to drive.
It drives
the
it
car. But I really think that ESPN, Fox Sports, maybe CBS. CBS has a contract with the SEC, and they get the first choice of games as they come up on a weekly basis. I really, really believe that in the final analysis, they're going to have to take something akin to what you've said, and the first round and the second round, and then finally a championship game, or the first and second and third round, and finally a championship game, because that 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a 16-team tournament. 1, 2, 3 would be an 8-team tournament. I believe that within 2 years, there's going to be a whoop and a wharf and a cry and a scream and shout to move it, because the quality of teams up top here, the fact that if 2 SEC teams did not make it in the Final Four, and the quality of those teams are playing, there's going to be some serious grumbling. And then if a team like Michigan State loses to Ohio State and nobody from the Big Ten gets in, there's going to be some screaming and shouting there. So you take a look at these. Let's just take a look at these.
Well, hold on. I like exactly what you're saying, but here is how the influence can be applied by ESPN. If they really, really want to be the mover and shaker behind all of this, let them really change up the format right now. Right now, we get these 12 folks that make these decisions, and there's nothing in relation to demonstrating how it is that they get to this, other than that TV show that comes out. Let it play out like a documentary or a weekly soap or something, and go in there and show them that, here's the war room. Here's how these folks come up with their decisions. Jeff Long going at Condoleezza Rice and looking at it and boiling it all down.
That would be great drama, but that would also.
That's all we want is drama about it.
That to me would sacrifice the essential integrity. What I want to do is go over and take a look at these teams again.
Okay.
Mississippi State, Florida State, Auburn, Oregon, Alabama, TCU, Kansas State, Michigan State, Arizona State, and Notre Dame. Now, if we were to even try to pick 8 of those at this point, and it's all kind of moot because in a couple of weeks everything's going to change out anyway, because Mississippi State's playing Alabama, Alabama's playing LSU, Auburn's playing Georgia, and Auburn's got to play Alabama. Florida State plays Sister Cupcake. Oregon plays nobody, and Arizona State. Michigan State's got to play Ohio State. And Kansas State's got it this weekend. Kansas State and TCU.
Yep.
So that's going to take care of things right there. But the quality of teams, by whatever metric you would want, still focuses on the fact, from my perspective, that we need more than just a 4-team playoff.
I agree with you. If looking at this CFP, I'm okay with Utah not making the top 16 and maybe being left out. I'm not okay with any of those schools you mentioned not being able to compete for a championship, whether it's Alabama, Kansas State, TCU.
Well, why would Utah be? See, that's what I'm saying. Let's not just bring out a list and say, here are the schools that are going to compete. I'd like to know their rationale behind why they would exclude certain programs. And we know that it includes a formula of strength of schedule, wins and losses, and all this good stuff. But here's the thing that we kind of deviated from the fact is they gave sort of a pass to Oregon. They're up there now. But yet when it comes to TCU, strength of schedule, their win-losses and all this stuff. You can't say it's not going to be factored in for one school and then it's factored in for another.
It appears to be very, very subjective.
You're right.
Because they lost at home to Arizona, and they give you all kinds of excuses. Anyway, that's another argument there. One of the reasons that we've been given over the years that they don't want to have a playoff that goes after the season, the division. why it works with the old Division One AA FCS, why it works with the Division Two of the NCAA, creating the individual called the student athlete, which they did to avoid a lawsuit. At any rate, these kinds of conversations and discussions are going to continue to go on. As usual, we've run out of time, but not out of words. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to send in some really good suggestions to Sports Talk at USSA.edu. And so for Tim and Fred, we wish you a happy weekend, sports. We'll see you next week at this time.
Marshall's still undefeated.
Go K-State.
Yes, I know.